You're listening to the We Are Libertarians podcast network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. Welcome to Now Hear This. I'm your host, Chris Spangle. Now Hear This is a conversation with leaders in Indianapolis that are working to improve the lives of Hoosiers. Our goal is to empower you to join in their work and make a difference while informing you about the unseen aspects of life in Indiana. If you miss an episode, you can listen via podcast at nowhearthisindy.com. Great show today. It is with an organization that you have seen their work, you have appreciated their work, but you may not have known that they were behind it. And so we're very excited to feature the work of Keep Indianapolis Beautiful. And today we have Christina Euland, who is the VP of Development and External Affairs, and Alejandra Lagunas, the Arts Engagement Project Coordinator. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll start with Christina. Tell us a little bit about Keep Indianapolis Beautiful.
Hi, Chris. Thanks so much, and thanks for having us on today. I'd love to tell you about Keep Indianapolis Beautiful, and I'm glad to hear that you've seen our work around. Keep Indianapolis Beautiful is a nonprofit organization. We've been working in Indianapolis for over 40 years, actually almost 45 years now. And our mission is to engage diverse communities to create vibrant public spaces that help people and nature thrive. And we do that in lots of ways that you do see, and some ways that you don't see. A lot of people know Keep Indianapolis Beautiful because we plant thousands of trees in Indianapolis each year. And newer trees that we plant, younger trees, you can usually identify because they have little white tubes at the base of the tree, and they're usually right along the street. And you'll see them pop up, and more often than not, those are trees that were planted with the help of Keep Indianapolis Beautiful. We also do a lot by way of litter abatement. We provide supplies to communities, to neighborhoods, and adopt a block captains so they can keep their streets free from litter. And we're actually just starting to engage in a pretty large behavior change campaign to hopefully keep people from starting litter problems to begin with. So you can look for that coming up soon as well. One of the things we do to really hit home on beautification is also engage in quite a bit of public art throughout the community. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more today.
Yeah, so let's talk to Alejandra, who is the Arts Engagement Project Coordinator. Tell us about some of that public art that you work on.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for having us again. So one of the projects that we are currently working in is the Indy Art and Seek project. And what the Indy Art and Seek project is an engaging and accessible public art project that was designed to give a voice in creating public art for all Indianapolis residents, particularly in neighborhoods that have been traditionally underserved in arts, culture, and green infrastructure. We in 2018, we received a grant from the Living Endowment through their Strength Indianapolis through Arts and Culture Innovation Initiative. And we partner with the Arts Council to provide this opportunity for local artists to engage in their communities with this small moments of delight, something that we like to call the moments of delight, little small scale interventions that are happening through all the Indianapolis neighborhoods.
Yeah, and be sure to go to nowhearthisindy.com to hear our interview with the Arts Council of Indianapolis. And she mentioned this project. As you mentioned, 100 new art interventions throughout the community, as well as 6 large-scale installations. Can you, pardon me for the pun, it's not intentional, but can you paint a picture of what is an intervention, an art intervention, those large scale? What do they look like? What, as people are driving around or walking around, what should they look for? How do they know that that's attached to Keep Indianapolis Beautiful?
Well, it is happening through all Indianapolis. First of all, let me back myself up a little bit. And our intervention is a small, temporary, and when I say small scale, if you think of a box of 4 by 4, and it's usually small scale with those dimensions. It's an artistic installation or action that changes the perception of a place. So all these artists who are involved in Art and Seek are talking to their communities and are talking and they're taking existing infrastructure in the neighborhood and they are reacting to those existing infrastructure. And as I mentioned, for this Indy Art and Seek, we also referring the art interventions, this temporary initial small scale projects, moments of delight, something that changes the perception of the existing infrastructure in the neighborhood.
So for example, there might be a crack in a sidewalk that's been there for years and years, and an artist can come along and make a beautiful chalk art or temporary painting around a crack in the sidewalk that totally makes it seem different to someone who would see it.
That's great. Yeah, I watched a documentary on Detroit, and one of the ways that they drove down crime was public art and changing the sides of buildings, because when everybody wants to stand next to a building and take a picture, criminals or people engaged in criminal activity don't generally want to be around cameras. So, is it things like that? Is that part of the process and the thinking? Give me the this is to either one of you. To Christina, I'll ask you. What is the goal of this? If you're out there and you're listening and you're not necessarily an art lover, convince that person that this is a worthy initiative.
So one of the things we know is that people are much more likely to engage in cultural activities if they're fun, right? So one of the goals around this project was to make art accessible in your everyday life, right? To residents across the city. It doesn't have to necessarily be something that you buy an expensive ticket to and plan a sitter for and things like that. You could experience it, as you're walking down the sidewalk. And one of the ways we're really making it fun is by providing or developing a specific mobile app that goes along with the project that makes it a little more interactive for folks who are seeking out these interventions throughout the city. When we were thinking about developing the app, and of course we have a partner who's helping develop that, one of the things that came to mind were how much people love to play Pokemon Go. And I don't know if you're familiar with geocaching that was popular a few years ago, where you would find small things in unexpected places. So this mobile app will allow people to be directed to the general area where the art's located, but still allow for that aha moment of, oh, here it is, I found it, and it's different than I expected, and it has, I wouldn't have thought I would find a piece of art here. So by adding in a really fun element to the art, I think that's why someone who doesn't necessarily maybe consider themselves well-versed in art or public art might really find participating in this project really fun and exciting.
Alejandra, can you give and let us know when your app is released, and B, and where they can find it, and then B, what impact have you heard in terms of stories from artists or from people in the community that, wow, this installation came in, it changed this. Give us, what impact have you seen on the ground on an individual basis?
I think it's really important that there has been that interaction between the community, group, organization, or leaders, and the artists, because together they have developed this ideas of they have talked about locations, they have talked about themes, issues that are happening in their community, or any other ideas that they would like for others outside their neighborhood to explore. I personally have seen stories of communities wanting to change the perception of being a bad neighborhood for other members in the community, to having this perception of, look what my community has to offer. Look at this little building in the corner of intersection, blah, 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 and blah, 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 and know the history of this building, that it has been here. It used to be, a grocery store that a lot of the community members gather and share stories. And for artists, I think when we first had the opportunity to select all the artists, it started during the COVID kind of crisis. And when we send all the notification of you have been accepted, it was really awesome to see emails coming back to us saying, oh, I really appreciate this opportunity. This is going to change everything. And we are so excited because we need it. As artists, COVID is going to change everything for us. And as artists, we are able to participate in RNC and have other members of the community see our work. So it's been great. It's been great.
Christina, add on to that, and I'd also ask, can people still nominate locations, or if you're an artist, can they still participate?
Well, so I'll start with your first question. So Alejandro hit on a little bit one of the things that makes this project pretty unique in that engaging the communities where the art was to be located was paramount to the success of the project. And in fact, I think we've probably spent as much or more time focused on making sure the community was part of selection of the location and working with the artists than we have having the artists actually create the art. So that was really, really important to us. And then also 100% of the artists participating are local Indianapolis based, or at least, Indianapolis and the suburbs based artists. There are no artists who are coming in from out of state to work on this project. So you'll find a great mix of really established artists as well as new emerging artists featuring their work in the project. At this time, I believe all of the locations have been selected and all of the artists are engaged, but hopefully this will just be a springboard for similar projects. We can continue to place even more public art throughout the city in future years. But we're looking forward to getting this app launched and this 106 art pieces available to the public yet this fall.
When is the app coming out?
September 5th.
Perfect. All right. Check your app stores, Android, iOS app stores for that. You mentioned a litter project, and can you give us, I'm going to ask Christina this, Christina Euland, who is the VP of Development and External Affairs for Keep Indianapolis Beautiful. Their website is kibi.org. How did Keep Indianapolis Beautiful start? And tell us a little bit about the early mission and how that has evolved over the years.
Sure. You're asking how we got into the litter game?
Yeah. How'd you get into this wild game of conservation?
So Keep Indianapolis Beautiful was started during the Hudnut administration. It was originally called the Indianapolis Clean City Committee.
Was this the famous hoop shot?
Yes, commercial? The Hudnut Hook. You remember?
Yep.
Maybe you don't, but you've heard of the Hudnut Hook, the big public service announcement campaign. So there was actually a national travel writer who had visited Indianapolis during that time and didn't have very nice things to say about the city, specifically in terms of the litter that he saw when he was here. So the mayor at that time really took that to heart and said, I'm going to put some people on the case. And so he formed a small city committee of folks to really look into that and address it. And that's sort of the genesis of the big public service announcement campaign. And over the years, it grew from a city office to spun off as its own nonprofit, in the 80s. And so now for 45 years, we've been continuing that fight and making sure that folks had resources and knowledge to keep their streets and alleyways free of litter and debris. But it's something you can't take your eye off of, right? Like it's something you have to stay on top of all the time. And one of the things that's happened or is emerging as a sort of a new litter problem is PPE litter. So, folks are using their gloves and their masks and then they want rid of them as soon as possible. And sometimes that's before they encounter a trash receptacle or an appropriate place to put that. So that's something that's relatively new that we're starting to put some messaging out around the importance of properly disposing of your gloves and your face coverings.
So what programs do you do to ensure that? Because one thing that I travel a lot for work and I go to major cities and they just don't hold a candle to Indianapolis in terms of its cleanliness. And you hear that a lot. We have 41,000 jobs tied to tourism and hospitality here in Indianapolis. And when we're able to have big events, it is commonly said this is just the best city. It's clean, it's safe. So how do you make that happen? What programs do you employ to keep us litter free?
Well, I'm so glad to hear you say that, Chris. It's not just KIB who helps keep Indianapolis, free from litter and not holding a candle to the peer cities, but we do provide support to that end. And some of the primary programs I mentioned a little earlier, we encourage folks to adopt their blocks. And we have at any given year, almost 1,000 individuals who have adopted a city block. And depending on where you live, that might include the street front as well as the alleyway behind your homes. And those folks go out every week. They make sure their storm drains are clear. They make sure any random debris is picked up and they put it in their own, household trash for carry away, which is awesome. And anyone can volunteer to do that. There's a map right on our website at kibi.org. You can see if your block is adopted. If it's not, you can adopt it, or you can adopt an adjacent block. So that's a big program. We also have a program called Great Indy Cleanup. And that's part of a larger national initiative called the Great American Cleanup, which happens every year. And that program runs spring through autumn. And with that, you can actually gather a group of your neighbors in your neighborhood and request anything as large as a dumpster to be put, out into your neighborhood for the weekend. So all of your neighbors can clean up together and make sure that the alleyways are clear and the large debris is clear. We'll provide trash bags, we'll provide gloves and litter grabbers. And the folks in your neighborhood will get credit for being volunteers for the weekend. And then also I mentioned that we're embarking on a behavior change campaign. We're actually doing that with a scientific research partner who's really working to get some information about why people choose to litter when they litter. So anything from illegal dumping to just convenience litter, wrappers, drink containers. Like what happens at that moment when you decide not to put your trash where it goes and rather to just put it wherever you are? We're really trying to hone in on that, when that behavior starts and how we can get inside someone's head at that moment and have them make a different choice.
That's really interesting. Do you have any insight on that? And secondly, I never thought I'd ask a follow-up question on litter, but here we are. I'm fascinated by that because you typically just think of the person driving down the road throwing the fast food wrapper out the window. But you mentioned different kinds of litter. Like, what does that look like? I mean, you drive through certain parts of town, you may see a mattress, or you may see other pieces. What does litter look like in Indianapolis?
So we kind of think about two kinds of litter. We think about illegal dumping, which is really large litter that someone either didn't know where to take it or didn't have the resources to take it where it needed to go. So one of the things we're going to try to do is make sure that everyone in Indianapolis knows how to properly dispose of those large items that they no longer want or need in their home. Things like mattresses, old appliances, things that are just hard to understand how to dispose of them. So we're going to work on getting that information out with our partners at the City of Indianapolis, and also the trash haulers like Raise and Republic. And then there's like what we refer to as sort of the convenience trash. So you mentioned, fast food wrappers and that. There's also a lot of cigarette butt litter that needs to be addressed, and we're working on ways to address that. We actually just received a grant from Keep America Beautiful to do some marketing messaging around cigarette butt litter specifically. So we're hoping to roll that out. We will be rolling that out in the next year. But yeah, so there are lots of different kinds of litter. There's also litter that will accumulate in a lot that is vacant or in an underpass. So what we're really doing is we are delving into the decision-making process for litter in each of those locations. And then we're working to develop interventions and pilot some interventions around decreasing specific types of litter that happen not only in different places, but different like physical pieces of litter, and make sure people know how to best dispose of those.
Is one of them just like, I wouldn't know where to take a couch. If I didn't live in an apartment complex and couldn't throw it in the dumpster, then I'm not sure what I would do. Is it just a lack of education on how to dispose of some of these things?
Right. People just assume that it's not okay to dispose of a couch. But I can tell you from personal experience, all you have to do is know when your heavy trash day is. And for most residents of Marion County, that's once a month. Sometimes it's even twice a month. On your regular trash day, you can put out up to 2 what they call heavy trash items. So a sofa, a mattress, those qualify as heavy trash. You just need to know what day to put it out, and it will go away.
Look at
from
that.
Your home.
That's excellent. Yeah, I think that's a couch, a mattress, a fridge. If you know what day to put it out, you can dispose of it. Well, that is fantastic. All right, final question for both of you. I'll ask each of you. Again, we're talking to Keep Indianapolis Beautiful. My name is Chris Spangle. Their website is kibi.org. And I am talking to Christina Euland, who is the VP of Development and External Affairs, and Alejandra Lagunas, who is the Arts Engagement Project Coordinator. Alejandra, what is the thing that you see every single day in your work that you wish everybody understood about what you do?
I think community. I think community engagement. It's different with different neighborhood, different organizations. And I wish people could understand that you don't go into a neighborhood and just do a project. You have to get to know the neighborhood. You have to get to know their needs, and work from there.
How do you do that? What's the process? Is it just going door to door and talking to folks, or do you send out surveys and mailers? Like, how do you get to know a community before you move into work in it?
I think it starts with personal research. I think that's one of the first steps, just personal research. And kind of the second step is, if it requires to go door to door, I think that is what is needed. If it requires to talk to the community leaders who have been there for years and years, and they are the ones who can put you in contact with the rest of the community, that's what it takes. I think it's just different. It's just different, and you have to be able to accommodate their needs and their work process.
Could you give me an example? Because I'm fascinated by this. The differences in neighborhoods. I think we by now have all seen the map, that black and white map of Indianapolis with all the Little Flower and Irvington, and I'm in Southport. Can either of you give us an idea of the different characteristics of these neighborhoods as you go out and work in them? Is there one, like this is just a very strong-willed community? Like I'm not sure what the characteristics of a neighborhood might be, but as you're talking to these leaders and the people in these communities, give us an idea of the different characteristics around Indianapolis and these neighborhoods.
I love Indianapolis, and it's really difficult for me to hear say on Earth the different what I like about the different communities. But some neighborhoods are super well organized and have committees, and some others are very laid back and just kind of go with the flow. But as far as other characteristics is, I think it's just one of the main characteristics is that they all want their neighborhoods to be safe. They all want their neighborhoods to be walkable, to have green spaces for the future for future generations.
Christina, I'll ask you that about the different characteristics of the neighborhood, but also talk about the importance of greenscapes and green spaces.
Mm-hmm. So the official, I know the map that you're speaking of, we have a few of them in our office. Officially, there are 99 Indianapolis neighborhoods, and KIB has done work in 96 of those, and we're working on the last 3. So we have pretty good experience working with neighbors and community leaders across the city. One of the things we're really excited about the Art and Seek project being able to help with is allowing community members to really talk about the heritage and the background, what's important to their specific neighborhood, what's changing about their neighborhood. Those are conversations they're able to have with the artists prior to this art being installed. So the experience of someone living in Hawville may be very different than the experience of someone living in Riverside, but they can have conversation with the artist about how that might be expressed through art. And, you know, you said your neighborhood is Southport. I'm in a similar area, you know, here, and our daily lives, what we all live in Indianapolis, but the heritage and the things that make the South Side uniquely the South Side are very different than the things, you know, that might make Riverside uniquely Riverside. So we think it's important not to make those assumptions as KIB or as the Arts Council, but to really make sure that the folks who are living there every day are able to express those things through art, which is fantastic.
Who determines what is a neighborhood? Is it the neighborhood itself? Because, you know, Southport runs into Homecroft pretty quickly. You know, if you're in Little Flower, it turns into Irvington fairly quickly. How is there a determination made, or is it just the neighbors declare, I'm part of this?
You know, you're absolutely right that an official neighborhood may have 2 or 3 or more sort of self-defined smaller neighborhoods. And when you get into places that have subdivisions or HOAs, that HOA or subdivision may define themselves as a neighborhood. But we use the Indy Maps official map that's available through the City of Indianapolis website, and is also reflected on the Indy Vitals, where you can look up demographic information about all the neighborhoods in Indianapolis.
Well, that's great. I'll ask you that final question too, Christina. What is the thing that you see every day that you wish everybody understood about your work?
Oh gosh, I wish people who feel like they don't have a voice in projects or things that are happening in Indianapolis would reach out to organizations like Keep Indianapolis Beautiful or like the Arts Council or many others, to realize that we're always seeking feedback from residents about our work, about what they want to see in their neighborhood or in their city. That Indianapolis in general is just a very accessible place to get meetings, to get conversations going. So what I wish is that when people feel frustrated about the way things are, they would make a phone call or send an email and start a conversation, so that maybe together we can work through some of our challenges.
Well, excellent. We've been speaking to Keep Indianapolis Beautiful. Again, that website is kibi.org. If you'd like to get involved, if you want to get involved? I mean, I imagine there's a volunteer sign up. I'm sure you take donations. Give us a pitch on how to get involved, and if you want to give, can you do that?
Oh, absolutely. If you go to kibi.org/donate, of course, we are grateful for every financial dollar anyone can make to KIB, but you know, we could not complete work around the community without many volunteers each year. That same website has a project calendar that's updated daily with volunteer opportunities. Those are a little more limited in a COVID environment than they would be in a typical year, but we still have volunteer opportunities available. We're working on some green space build outs this year that are going to be fantastic. So there are a few opportunities to do that yet this fall. And related to Art and Seek, I just hope everybody downloads the app, and when it's a nice afternoon and you want to take a walk, you really think about going out and seeing some really creative public art and getting involved that way as well.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much. Christina Euland, VP of Development and External Affairs, and Alejandra Lagunas, the Arts Engagement Project Coordinator for Keep Indianapolis Beautiful. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for listening to Now Hear This. I'm your host, Chris Spangle. If you missed any portion of our program, you can listen on our website, nowhearthisindy.com. If you'd like to have your organization featured on the show, please contact Gabby at 317-475-7407 or via the contact page on our website. Thank you for listening, and we will be back again next weekend with Now Hear This. Confused about the news? If you want to sound smarter when talking with your friends, our mission at the We Are Libertarians podcast network is to inform you about the world in an independent and irreverent way. We take current events far more seriously than we take ourselves. Get all 9 of our shows at wearelibertarians.com or in any podcast app by searching for We Are Libertarians.